Welcome back, my dear students. We will complete our chapter 3, the research design. We will complete part 2 in this chapter in the marketing research course. In the last lecture, we discussed this chapter outline. We discussed the research design definition and the research design classification. We make a comparison between the exploratory research and the descriptive research. And today we will complete the different types of the descriptive research, and we will define the causal research, and we will discuss the relationship among these three types of the research. And in the final of the chapter, we will discuss the marketing proposals. All these we discussed last lecture. We make between the different types of research design, like the exploratory research, descriptive research, causal research, and then we discuss the uses of the exploratory research and the different methods of the exploratory and the uses of the descriptive research, the different uses and why this research is important, and then the different types of the descriptive research. Today we will discuss the different types of the descriptive research. The first classification or the first type of the descriptive research is the cross-sectional design. In the cross-sectional design, the cross-sectional study is the most frequently used descriptive design in marketing research. The cross-sectional design involves the collection of information from any given sample of population elements only once. They may be either single cross-sectional or multiple cross-sectional. In single cross-sectional, only one sample of respondent is drawn from the target population and information is obtained from this sample only once. These designs are also called the sample survey research. So here in our slide, the involving the cross-sectional design involves the collection of information from any given sample of population elements only once, and in the single cross-sectional design there is only one sample of represents and information is obtained from this sample only. But in the multiple cross-sectional design there are two or more samples of respondents and information from each sample is obtained only once. Often information from different samples is obtained at different times. So in the multiple cross-sectional design, there are two or more samples of respondents and information from each sample is obtained only. Often information from different samples obtained at different times over long intervals. The following example illustrates the single and multiple cross-sectional design. Multiple cross-sectional design allow comparisons at the aggregate level but not at the individual respondents level because a different sample is taken each time a survey is conducted. There is no way to compare the measures on an individual response across survey. One type of multiple cross-sectional design of special interest is cohort analysis. And then here we will define the cohort analysis that consists of a series of surveys conducted at appropriate time intervals where the cohort serves as the basic unit of analysis. A cohort is a group of respondents who experience the same event within the same time interval. So it's unlikely that any of the individuals studied at time 1 will equal to the sample at time 2. For example, the age cohort of people between 8 and 19 years like this in this table. We will discuss this example. Um, the age cohort of people between 8 and 19 years old was selected, and their soft drink consumption was examined every 10 years for 30 years. In other words, every 10 years a different sample of respondents was drawn from the population of those who were then between 8 and 19 years old. This sample was drawn independently of any previous sample drawn in this study from the population were unlikely to be included again in the same age cohort 8 to 19 years old, as these people would be much older at the time of subsequent sampling. This study showed that this cohort has increased consumption of soft drinks over time. Similar findings were obtained for other age cohorts 22-29, 32-39, 42-49, and 50 plus. Further, the consumption of each cohort didn't decrease as the cohort aged. These results are presented in this table, in which the consumption of the various age cohort over time can be determined by reading drawing the dialogue. These findings contradicted the common belief that the consumption of soft drinks will decline with the graying of America. This common but belief was based on single cross-sectional studies. Note that if any column of this table is viewed in isolation, a single cross-sectional study, the consumption of soft drinks declines with each, fostering the beliefs. The cohort analysis is also used to predict changes in voter opinion during a political campaign. Well-known marketing researchers like this example, or who specialized in political opinion research, periodically question preferences to predict election results. Thus, cohort analysis is an important cross-sectional design, like this example that we explain here. And then we have the second type of the conclusive research is the long design researches. In the long design researches, a a type of research design involving a fixed sample of population elements that is measured representatively. The sample remains the same over time. Thus, the providing of serious pictures that when viewed together probably the illustration of the situation and the changes that are taking place over time. So sometimes this term of long design study, a fixed sample or sample of population elements is measured Presently on the same variables, a long design study different from the cross-sectional design in that the sample or samples remain the same over time. In other words, the same people are studied over time and the same variables are measured. In contrast to the typical cross-sectional design, which gives a snapshots of the variables of interest, a single point in time, a long study research provide a series of pictures that gives an in-depth view of the situation and the changes that takes place over time. For example, the question, how did the American people rate the performance of George Bush after the war would be addressed using a cross-sectional design. However, long study design would be used to address the question, how did the American people change their view of Bush performance during the war in Africa? So sometimes here we in the long design, here in our slide, in the long design researches are a type of research design involved a fixed sample or samples of population elements is measured repeatedly on the same variables, and the long design research different from a cross-sectional in that the sample or sample remains the same. And then we have an example of the relative advantage and disadvantage of the long design research and the cross-sectional design research. Here in this table, there are an evaluation criteria for the cross-sectional design and the long design researches for these advantages and disadvantages. Then in this table demonstrate how the cross-sectional data on can mislead the researcher about changes over time. The cross-sectional data reported in this table that purchase on brand A, B, and C. We have here three brands, brand A, brand B, and brand C, remain the same in time period 1 and 2 in each survey. 20% of the representatives purchased brand A, 30% brand B, and 50% brand C. The long data presented in this table show that the substantial data in the front of branding switching occurred in the study period. For example, only 50% of the respondents who purchased brand A in period 1 also purchased it in period 2. The corresponding repeat purchase figure for brand B and brand C are respectively 33.3% and 55%. Hence, during this interval, brand C experienced the greatest loyalty and brand B the least in and provides the valuable information on brand loyalty and brand switching. Um, then in the long data enable researchers to examine the changes in the behavior of individual units and to link behavior changes to marketing variables such as changes in advertising, packaging, pricing, and distribution. Here in our 4Ps, in the 4Ps, different types. Since the same units are measured repeatedly varies caused by the change in the same element estimated and even small changes as apparent. Another advantage of panels is the relatively large amount of data can be collected because panel members are usually um, compensated for this participation. They are willing to participate in length and demanding interviews. Then we will discuss this type of the research is the causal research. We will define the causal research as a type of the conclusive research where the major objective is to obtain evidence regarding cause and effect relationships, and in the causal research is used to obtain evidence of cause and effect relationships. The marketing managers continually make the decision based on assumed causal research. These assumptions may not be justifiable, and the validity of the causal research, the causal relationships should be examined via formal research. For example, the common assumption that a decrease in price will lead to increased sales and market share doesn't hold in certain competitive environment. The causal research is appropriate for the following purposes: to understand which variables are the cause independent variable and which variable are the effect the dependent variable of a phenomenon. Two, and it's important is the second important to determine the nature of the relationship between the causal variables and the effect to be predicted. These the two uses of the causal research as we discuss now. Like the descriptive research, the causal research requires a planned and structured design. Although descriptive research can determine the degree of association between variables, it's not appropriate for examining the causal research, such as examination requires a causal design in which the causal or independent variable are manipulated in a relatively controlled environment. A relatively controlled environment is one of the other variables that may affect the dependent variable are controlled or checked as much as possible. The effect of this manipulation or on one of or more dependent variables is then measured to infer causally. The main method of caused research is experimentation. Because of its complexity and importance, a separate chapter has been devoted to causal design and experimental research. However, we give some examples here whether the presence and helpful of sales people, the causal variables will influence the sales. Otherwise comparable housewares departments of particular chain are selected, and then in the final uh, of this chapter, we have the marketing research proposal here um, in this slide. We have the marketing research proposal and what it consists of. In the marketing research proposal consists of one, the research design has been formulated and budgeting and scheduling of the project accomplished. A written research proposal should be prepared. The marketing research proposal contains the essence of the project and serves as contract between the researcher and management. The research proposal covers all phases of the marketing research process. It describes the research problem, the approach, the research design, and how the data will be collected, analyzed, and reported. It gives a cost estimate and a time schedule for completing the project. Although the format of research proposal may vary considerably, most proposals addresses all steps of the marketing research process and contain the following elements. The first element of the marketing research proposal here in our slide, number one, is the executive summary. The executive summary is the proposal should begin with a summary of the major points from each of the other sections, presenting an overview of the entire proposal. And then we have number two is the background. In the background of the problem, including the environmental context, should be discussed. Number three, the problem definition or the objectives of the research. These are a statement of the problem, including the specific components should be presented. If these elements has not been developed, the objective of the marketing research project should be clearly specified. In the number four, the approach to the problem. The approach to the problem, at a minimum, a review of the relevant academic and trade literature should be presented along with some kind of analytical model. If research questions and hypotheses have been identified, then this should be included in the proposal. Number five, the research design. The research design adopted, whether exploratory, descriptive, or causal, should be specified. Information should be provided in the following components, like the kind of information, the method of administrating the questionnaire, the scaling technique, the nature of the questionnaire, and the sampling plan and sample size. Here in number six, in marketing research proposal, the field work or the data collection. The proposal should discuss how the data will be collected and how we'll collect it. If the field work is to be subcontracted to another supplier, this should be stated. Controlled mechanism to ensure the quality. And in the seventh part here, the data analysis, the kind of data analysis that will be conducted, simple cross universe analysis, and how the result will be interpreted should be described. And the eighth component of the marketing research proposal is the reporting. In the reporting, the proposal should specify whether intermediate report will be presented and at what stages, what will be the form of the final report, and whether a formal presentation of the results will be made. And The eighth component here is the cost and the time. In the cost and the time, the cost of the project and a time schedule. Broken down by phrases should be presented. A payment schedule is also worked out in advance. In the last component of the marketing research proposal is the appendixes. Any statistical or other information that is of interest only to a few people should be contained in appendices. So preparing a research proposal has several advantages. It ensures that the researcher and management agree about the nature of the project and help sell the project to management, because preparation of the proposal until planning, it helps the researcher conceptualize and execute the marketing research project. So we reach for the in the end for our chapter. Thank you, my dear students, and good luck for all.